So with season 2 of Dandadan finally coming to a close, we finally have an opportunity to address a lot of the questions that this anime had to face. Because after the first season, a lot of people had this anime extremely hyped up. In fact, a lot of people felt like it should have been anime of the year. And I would not argue with them because of just how unique this anime was. But with the second season, a lot of people were wondering if this anime was going to be able to keep up its momentum because we kinda know what it's about, relatively. So this anime had to knock out the second season because most of the time that is the most pivotal season for anime because that's when people can figure out if this anime can be consistently good or was it just a one-off wonder. And based on some of the things that this anime addressed with the second season, it taught us a lot of things. But the most biggest lessons that we learned before I cue the opening music is that apparently you can just function without one ball.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
When it comes to Dandadan season 2, oh yeah, I gotta give you the premise. It's basically a story about a guy who lost his balls, he's trying to find his balls. There you go. So in terms of this season, there were a lot of questions that this anime had to answer because of the fact that the first season was super unpredictable and it was the first time we saw Dandadan in terms of the anime. So a lot of people had a blank slate with the anime, but after the first season, people kinda know what the anime is about. So the question is, could it spark that intrigue that it gave you from the first season? And I think people are gonna come out of this season with different answers. Because in terms of this season, one of the most biggest and hyped moments was Evil Eye, a person who kind of seemed like he was gonna be the antagonist of season 2. Most of the trailers were promoting him and there was this idea that Evil Eye was going to be their sort of big boss, a guy who is this evil individual and they have to deal with him. And a lot of people came into this season expecting a very big boss fight sort of atmosphere, but that was very short-lived because in terms of the season, it was confusing in a good way, but also in a bad way. Because in terms of the whole hype that came with Evil Eye, it was relatively a short experience. In fact, some might say it even felt a bit rushed because Evil Eye was kind of dealt with relatively quickly and before you knew it, they were just back to living their normal lives. And then on the other side, you could say that it was extremely unpredictable and on key with what Dandadan is because of the fact that this fight just ended so quickly. And this then brought me to one of the most biggest thinking points about this anime. It's the unpredictability. Because a lot of people like the fact that this anime is extremely unpredictable. But the thing is with this season, I actually think that they amped up the unpredictability because in terms of Evil Eye, there were so many moments, even after his whole menacing arc, where you had to see Gigi deal with the fact that he has Evil Eye inside of him. Just seeing him traverse the fact that he has to dodge water or just liquids that are cold or hot was weird. But the thing is, this anime just made so many funny moments with that, where you thought that maybe Gigi's gonna turn into something, but then he doesn't, but then he does. And with this season, I think that this anime really wanted us to feel the fact that it's so unpredictable with Gigi and the entire Evil Eye experience. Because throughout this season, the fact that this anime really wanted to focus on being unpredictable is actually a really hard feat because they have to surprise you almost every single episode, and that's a big ask, not just for Dandadan but an actual anime is really difficult to do. But the thing is, Dandadan was able to actually do that whether people liked it or not, because on one aspect things would be very comedic, then on the other aspect things would be serious. And the thing is, in my own opinion, I feel like this season was more comedic, and that might have pushed people in a different direction, especially after season 1, which showed us a more darker side, a more sadder side, where we had one of the most saddest episodes of last year. So I think that people wanted something like that from Evil Eye, and they relatively got it in his experience and why he's such a bad person. But the fact that at the end of it, you kind of had to accept the fact that Evil Eye just might be evil and you just have to accept it, made it a bit of a problem for people. Yes, it's cool that, he's unpredictable and we might have to expect the fact that he's evil, but still, people wanted more of a deeper understanding and wanted to maybe feel bad for him and hopefully be friendly with Evil Eye, but then came to the realization that maybe some people or just some things are just evil. You gotta live with that. And in my own opinion, I really enjoyed that because you could see that the anime is working hard to just carry on being realistic but in a weird way, where some things are explainable and some things aren't. Even now with the whole kaiju experience, you kind of have to get used to it because you're watching Dandadan. You might have a lot of questions as to how did we go from an evil spirit who was contained as a kid and now he's unleashed in the modern world to now dealing with a kaiju that kind of looks like
It's Godzilla! It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not. Still, we should run like it is Godzilla! Though it isn't.
I like that because of just how unpredictable it was. But if people came into the season with this expectation of this more somber type of thing, they might have been disappointed because this was more of a happy-go-lucky but very unpredictable season. And I think that that actually gives the anime more points because if they keep going this way, it makes every single season so unpredictable. You don't know what to expect, but you'll always enjoy it. And that was the thing that I liked about season 2 because there was something nice about coming home and watching Dandadan because it had this homey feeling. It felt like something that was warm, something that brought you laughter and comedic moments. And I feel like that's something I didn't necessarily expect after finishing season 1. I thought that I was gonna get into a more darker anime, but then found myself just being excited to laugh and watch these individuals have these wacky journeys. And that's something I didn't expect from this anime. I saw a little bit of it in the first season, but I didn't realize that Dandadan would end up being one of my favorite anime when it comes to just watching something to make you feel good, make you feel happy, and make you laugh. I did not expect that, especially with how much they were promoting Evil Eye in terms of the next season trailer. I thought things were just going to be intensively dark and it was just going to be a bunch of action, but it wasn't really that, and I enjoyed it. The fact that Dandadan was able to do that is actually really amazing because it's basically just shifting moods with every season, but doing it in a really high level to the point that you don't mind the adjustment. Now I'm just speaking for myself, someone might have not liked that, but it's just cool to see that it's able to do so many different things at a high level but still remain itself. It didn't feel like it was selling out, it didn't feel like it wasn't Dandadan, it was just a good experience. And for me, that is the value that comes with this anime. It's the fact that this anime has to deal with the fact that people want it to always be unpredictable, but at the same time it has to deliver that unpredictability in a really good way that makes sense at the same time. Is actually really crazy because even though this season had moments where it was funny, there were serious moments as well that you kind of dealt with and you kind of felt like you were part of the family watching the situation. And to see that they took a character like Evil Eye and made him a canvas to kind of dissect certain things and make you think seriously, but for once there was a topic that was kind of serious but in a weird way compared to the other things that we saw. So even though it was unpredictable, it still gave you a little bit of some of the things that you liked in season 1, but then at the same time it had rock concerts, fighting musical artists who were ghosts, and a bunch of crazy things that made it funny, dark, and just a bunch of other different emotions that you would think is extremely hard to juggle. But this anime does it so well that it's actually amazing. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I think this anime deserves so much props, because of the fact that it's able to just morph and shift but still maintain its identity. It's actually really insane when you think about it, and that is borderline unheard of. And the thing that I really liked about this season, and more anime need to do this, is different day slots. I don't know if I'm just making that up, but the fact that it happens, well, where I'm at on Thursdays is so unique, because even with the slot that it has, it kind of actually separates it from everyone else. It stands alone in the fact that it has its own day. And there's something about that that's really cool, because I think more anime need to do that. Instead of always just wanting to all come out on a Sunday and Saturday, it's kind of just like a setting and it's solely isolated for this anime. I think that if more anime actually did that and had their own day and approached things in that way, it would actually be more of a good thing. There's something fun about that, and as such, whenever I watched Dandadan, it stood alone, not only in the fact that it was the only anime at the time that I was watching on Thursdays, it was the fact that it was also just really embracing the fact that it's Dandadan Day in a sense, and I really like that. And I don't know if that was a strategic move or not. It feels really calculated, but also it feels like they really did their work to make sure that the anime is able to shine with the second season. Now, to be fair, I always have to give negatives because I can't just always glaze or just say positive. And in terms of the negatives of this season, I think that there's two big negatives. One, the unpredictability. If you came into season 2 expecting more sadness, more seriousness, like you thought that it's an anime that's disguised as being goofy, but it's filled with sadness, you were disappointed. You kind of got a slice of life kind of anime throughout halfway, so you're probably pissed. And I can understand that, but you're watching Dandadan, so you kind of have to get used to that. It's unpredictable. The other thing that I noticed is just that personally think that sometimes the way that Dandadan wraps up seasons in like a weird cliffhanger aspect might not be the most crisp, because you kind of do ask yourself, who is this and why is there a kaiju and what's happening? Because I wasn't sure, was it just gonna be something for an episode 2 or not, but here we are and it ended with it. So that's something I don't necessarily like. That's really the only negatives when it comes to this anime, because on the other aspects, like animation, the animation is awesome. It's crisp, it's clean. They've put a lot of effort into this anime. They want to make sure that it's something that's represented well and it looks a certain way, and they achieved it. So the animation team did an amazing job, especially for the short amount of time taken for the next season. In terms of music, they just have fire music. Whether you want to analyze the OST or the openings and endings, they did a really good job, especially with the opening and the ending, because the ending just, there was something so warm about it. That's what I'm saying. Like for me, it felt like home, like you watched a good show and it felt like the show ended in a nice way. But in terms of the opening, it dealt with a lot of criticism because of just how amazing the first season opening was. And after some time, you kind of actually started to get warmed up to it. It's got an energy, and when you're able to really realize the lyrics, they kind of still are on key with what Dandadan is. And I like the fact that they get these musicians to kind of make music that correlates to what Dandadan is about, or what's happening, or what that character's feeling, and I really like that. Overall with this anime, I think that it had a lot to face, a lot of the pressure and expectations that people had on it, and it not only just dealt with those situations in its own unique way, it delivered a pretty good second season that is unique, but still really good. And that has to be the most exciting thing about being a Dandadan fan right now. You can see that they care about this anime. They're doing a bunch of things they don't have to. And that just lets you know that this anime is in good hands. You're going to be watching something amazing for a very long time. But also, if you're more neutral in terms of just general consumer of Dandadan, you're also happy because it passed the test of what you would want from season 2. It's still a good anime. It's not just a one-trick pony. And based on how things have ended and how things might be in the next season, the future for Dandadan is so unimaginably, blindingly bright. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this anime.